She walked out the door without looking back. The suitcase wheels scraped against the tile floor, dry, deliberate, like they were trying to dig into my ears. No tears, no rage, just an empty stare and her final words. I wasn't born to live like this. I said nothing. I didn't beg. I just stood there, in a wrinkled shirt, hands stained with grease from the basement repair shop I was freelancing at. I heard the door shut behind her. It was soft, but in my head, it sounded like the closing of an entire chapter. The room fell back into silence. Only the flickering fridge buzzed in the corner, its loose wires sparking from the outlet. And me, a 32-year-old man with a fancy degree, once backed by $1 million startup fund. Now broke, no money, no home, no woman who once promised to stand by me no matter what. She didn't leave me because I cheated, abused her, or neglected her. She left because I was poor. That's simple. When my company folded just 3 months in, when investors pulled out due to market turbulence, when I couldn't even afford rent and had to move back into that crumbling flat in the outskirts. She said, "I tried, but I can't come home every day and see you sitting there with a pile of failed business plans." I understood. I didn't blame her. I just remembered. That night she walked away. She didn't turn around. She didn't want to see me one last time. She feared my eyes might make her stay. But I didn't plead. I let her go, and I let the pain settle. I never mentioned her again, until 6 years later. 6 years was enough for me to vanish off social media, to change my name, my address, my face, my demeanor. 6 years to rebuild from scratch. No more startups, no more empty promises. Just a quiet tech company processing real estate data, run by someone who never appeared in press releases. I wasn't famous, but I controlled more than people thought. I wasn't rich enough to be arrogant, but I was rich enough never to bow again. And then, her resume landed on my assistant's desk. A job application for a temporary receptionist position at one of our branch offices. Name, Lauren Bennett. Date of birth, September 18th. Education, BA in Cultural Studies. Marital status, divorced. I sat still, stared at the photo. She looked thinner, the sparkle she used to flaunt replaced by fatigue. Her once styled hair now dull and uneven. No makeup, no sharp gaze like the day she left. I didn't smile. I didn't feel anything. I slid the folder back to my assistant. "Hire her." My voice was flat, like the wooden door that once closed behind her. The game began there, not because I wanted to destroy her. I just wanted, just once, to see her realize exactly who she had walked away from. I met Lauren when I was 27. At the time, I had just left a big tech corporation to chase my first startup, an AI-powered real estate platform. It sounded fancy, but in reality, it was just me and 2 programmer friends pulling all-nighters in a cheap rental flat in Eastwood. Lauren was an event coordinator for a conference center. We met at a pitching event. She stood in the middle of the room with a commanding voice, wearing a sharp black dress and eyes like blades. I was a jittery mess, sweating in the heat with a shaky voice that spoke too fast. I wasn't impressed by her. She scoffed when I asked for her number. But I chased. I had no money, but I had persistence, no status, but belief in myself. 3 months later, she agreed to date. A year later, we moved in together. She liked dreamers, but only the kind whose dreams began to take shape. In our second year, my startup secured a seed investment. A small tech blog ran a story. Startups to watch in the data era. Lauren was proud, took me home to meet her parents. I still remember the look her mother gave me, not quite approval, but tolerable if I kept climbing. I worked like a madman. No sleep, no rest, no weekends, just to keep up with investors, with her expectations and my own. But markets don't wait for anyone. A well-funded competitor from Singapore entered the game. We couldn't keep up. Our investors pulled out. We missed payroll, sold the car, shut down the office. And eventually, I moved back to that old apartment I once escaped from. Lauren went silent for a week. Then one evening, while I was editing the final proposal for a last-chance funding round, she laid a sheet of paper on the table. A job application. I'm applying to a 5-star hotel. I need a place that matches me. I nodded. Didn't argue. A month later, she left. Took a few clothes, some personal items. She didn't take anything from me. Didn't demand a thing. Just one parting sentence. You should focus on living in reality, not chasing dreams that never come true. I lost everything. The business, my faith. The woman who once said she'd weather any storm with me. For the next 3 months I slept on the floor, worked as a repair tech for home appliances, did warehouse shifts. I had no friends left. Nothing to say to anyone. Just one question on loop. If I succeed, would she come back? I didn't know. I only knew I would succeed, not to get her back, but so that if we ever crossed paths again, I wouldn't be the one standing lower. I chose to disappear, wiped my social media clean, cut off everyone who knew who I used to be. Used my middle name from my birth certificate, Ethan. Started over from zero, but this time in silence. I joined a Korean data company remotely. Worked my way into everything, algorithms, back-end logic, control systems. Became invisible, but indispensable. 3 years later, I bought the company. Not with money, but with code. I rebuilt the core engine. Turned it into a revenue machine. No one knew I was behind it. I didn't sign anything public. Hired a CEO, a spokesperson. Me, I stayed behind the curtain. I became invisible, but powerful. And then, Lauren appeared, not in a dream, but in real life. Her name, neatly typed in the entry-level applicant section of our recruitment list. 9 letters, plain font, no glow, Lauren Bennett. Divorced. I sat very still, didn't smile, didn't tear up. I just picked up the phone. Confirm her interview. 10 a.m. tomorrow, starting at the lowest position. Over the next 2 weeks, I allowed her to see more. I let her into high-level meetings, let her hear important calls, let her review confidential contracts, each stamped with my signature. Gradually, her eyes changed, no longer vacant, no longer evasive. Now, she was watching, careful, quiet. She hadn't asked who I was, but I knew the door in her mind was starting to crack open. I waited, and one day when she followed me to the parking garage to retrieve a forgotten file, I opened the door to the black Mercedes, the one she used to dream of, and said nothing. She stood there, still. "This car, is it yours?" she asked. I looked directly at her. Number it belongs to the company, and I built the company. Silence. Her eyes wavered, like she was staring at the edge of something she couldn't step away from. I turned away. No explanations, no confirmations. I didn't need her apology. I just left her with one line. "I have an offer, if you want to change your life." She looked up, silent, waiting. I continued, voice even and cold. "For the next 3 months, I need a personal assistant. All travel, all high-level documentation. No mistakes allowed. If you succeed, you'll be promoted to a management role. If not, you'll be removed from this organization permanently." She swallowed, then nodded. "I accept." I knew. She didn't know exactly who I was, but she knew. I held power, and that was what she once dismissed. Now she clung to it. The game truly began here. No rage, no screaming, just controlled power. The kind I once begged her to believe in. Now I only needed her to fear it. The appreciation banquet was held in the crystal hall of a 5-star hotel. Crystal chandeliers, Italian wine. Only those in the core network of the company were invited. A polite way of saying executives and major partners. Lauren was assigned to attend with me. She wore a long black dress, light makeup, loose hair. Not the radiant woman of years past, but there was effort. Not for me, but for the position she thought she was about to rise into. For 3 weeks as my personal assistant, she hadn't dared to ask my name. But she knew. I could see it in her eyes. When I signed documents, when I took calls in the same calm voice she used to hear, when I ordered the same pizza we used to eat in the old apartment. She knew, but she wasn't sure. And she needed me to confirm, because if it was true, everything she was holding on to would collapse. The banquet went as expected. Speeches, toasts, photos. I stood at the podium, spotlight in my eyes. Lauren stood below, holding the notes. She didn't look up. I picked up the microphone, didn't read the speech. I just said one line. There's someone in this room who once left me when I had nothing. Tonight she's standing here, taking notes for every word I say. No one understood. Only Lauren froze. I stared directly at her. I don't need to give a speech tonight. I just want to thank her for teaching me that when you lose everything, the only thing left is the will to rise. Polite applause followed, confused, disconnected. Lauren stood still, face pale. I stepped off the stage, walked toward her, no contact, no bow. I leaned in, just enough so no one else could hear. I'm Ethan. She looked up, tried to smile, but her lips trembled. I didn't know. I didn't let her finish. You don't need to. It ends here. I pulled out an envelope, handed it to her. Transfer letter. Sign it tonight. You don't need to come in tomorrow. She opened it. Her eyes scanned the cold, unambiguous line. Termination. No reason, no appeal. She looked at me again. Is this revenge? I stared back, didn't nod, didn't shake my head. I'm just putting you where you once put me. A long pause, as if every sound in the banquet hall disappeared, leaving only the footsteps of waiters moving across velvet carpet. She walked out. No apology, no tears. And this time, I was the one who didn't look back. The next day, she didn't show up. No one asked why. The assistant staff cleared her files and brought me a slim folder. Termination form, handover checklist, a broken company ID badge left on the front desk. No text, no farewell note. She disappeared, just like she did 6 years ago. But this time, not with confidence, with defeat. I didn't smile, didn't feel triumphant. Just quietly closed the folder. 3 days later, I received an email from HR. An office worker had reported that Lauren came to the headquarters in person, asking to meet a senior executive. No appointment, no reason, just stood in the lobby waiting. I told them to decline, the simplest way possible. There's no one by that name listed as staff or client. The following week, I got a letter. Handwritten, not from Lauren, from her mother, Mrs. Bennett. The paper was old, the handwriting thin and shaky. Dear Ethan, I know things happen between you and her, but if possible, please give her another job. She has nothing left. She's working night shifts at a low-end restaurant. Her child's been sick repeatedly. I stopped reading there. Not because it hurt, but because that was the boundary, the limit of what I considered returning balance. I placed the letter in my drawer, didn't tear it, Didn't reply either. A week later, I visited the old branch office, where Lauren used to sit. Her desk had a new occupant. The small cactus she once brought for good luck had been left behind, withered. I picked it up, then put it down. No one noticed. I kept walking toward the meeting room, but paused when I heard someone on the phone. Yeah, that Lauren woman. Thought she was tight with the boss. Tried to climb up, ended up crashing hard. I didn't turn around, didn't correct them. I didn't need to defend her. Because this time, she had written the ending herself. At the end of the month, I stopped by a local diner in the same apartment complex I once rented, the one that used to house my earliest team of repair techs. It was just coincidence, no purpose. And she was there, wearing a maroon uniform, apron stained with grease, holding a tray of drinks. Our eyes met. She froze. I didn't. I walked to a corner table, sat down, ordered a coffee. She brought it over, placed it on the table, said nothing. I nodded, not with disdain, not with pity, just in quiet recognition. As I stood up to leave, she spoke, softly. Ethan, if there's anything you still want to say. I stopped, but didn't turn back. I already said it. It ended at that banquet. She stood still. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I was wrong. I didn't answer. I walked out the door, not because I was cruel, but because some wounds don't need healing, only space to never be touched again. I never saw her again, not because I avoided her, but because there was no reason to look back. She vanished from my map, like she had never existed. I didn't search. I didn't ask around. Once, while cleaning out an old file cabinet, I found a Polaroid photo. It fell out from behind a binder, a shot of the day we moved into our first apartment together. I was carrying boxes. She flashed a peace sign, grinning brightly. The photo was slightly faded, corners curled. I looked at it for 10 seconds, then placed it in the bottom drawer. Didn't tear it, didn't keep it near. I wasn't angry anymore, just unwilling to return to a time when I had to beg for someone to see me. I still went to work every day. Still sat in the glass office on the 18th floor, watching the chaos of the city below. Sometimes people asked me, "How did you make it?" I only said, "Never believe anyone who says they'll stay forever." Not out of cynicism, but because when you've stood alone long enough, you learn how to walk without needing anyone beside you. One rainy evening, I left the office as the city lights began to flicker on. A drizzle. The wind blew through the trees like a long breath exhaled. I walked slowly down the stone steps. No umbrella. No rush. At the intersection, I stopped. Not because the light was red, but because, for the first time in years, I felt peace. No satisfaction, no regret. Just a quiet stillness. As if the applause had ended, the stage lights gone dark, and I was the only one left standing. No more proving anything, no more winning anything. Because I had learned the most important thing. Forgiveness isn't about giving someone else another chance. It's about giving yourself freedom. I didn't need her apology. I didn't need closure. I only needed her to no longer have the power to hurt me. And she didn't. Not ever again.